Currently, the third largest air force in the world is the People's Liberation Army Air Force, PLA Air Force, which is under the People's Liberation Army, the military of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. With more than 3,000 aircraft and advanced weapons, this air force is a powerful military unit. Known globally as an intercontinental air force, it has the capability to reach any corner of the world and attack in all four directions of the Asian continent. However, despite this praise, which is a source of pride, there is another reality to it. The Chinese Air Force is constantly striving to establish air dominance within its own borders, especially in a region known for its extreme conditions and unpredictable weather. This region is Tibet, one of the highest plateaus in the world. For the past century, it has been a difficult region for the PLA Air Force to operate effectively. The harsh terrain and weather conditions have often led to fatalities among their forces. How this challenging terrain becomes a significant obstacle for the Chinese Air Force is the subject of this new video, which explores this in detail, along with other related aspects. Tibet, or the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, is one of the most sparsely populated areas in the world, situated at an altitude of approximately 14,000 feet above sea level. Due to its high elevation in the Trans-Himalayan region and its extreme weather conditions, the geography of Tibet stands apart from other places. The absence of basic infrastructure created by the aforementioned circumstances, along with the severe difficulties in setting up modern transportation systems, poses significant challenges for both military and civilian operations. As a result, since 1950, when Communist China annexed this Buddhist nation, Beijing has been in a continuous, restless effort to establish proper military control. This has placed major limitations on the Chinese military, particularly the People's Liberation Army Air Force, PLA Air Force, in deploying forces in Tibet. Despite this, starting in the 1990s, China has made significant investments in infrastructure development in Tibet, including roads, airports, and communication systems. However, due to the region's altitude and weather conditions, they have not yet succeeded in making significant technical advancements to fully dominate the region's military and civilian airspace. This reality often renders China's moves in Tibet ineffective. This has often rendered the Chinese Air Force's moves in Tibet ineffective. Although Communist China annexed Tibet in 1950, it did not immediately deploy its air force to the region, unlike its ground forces. The main reason for this was Tibet's unique geography and the extreme atmospheric conditions that made air operations exceedingly difficult. Tibet, situated at an altitude of around 14,000 feet above sea level, is part of the Trans-Himalayan region, which means it has a challenging terrain and weather, including unpredictable climatic changes. These factors significantly impacted any air operations in the area, preventing efficient deployment and use of aircraft. However, as the local population began a large uprising against Chinese suppression in the mid-1950s, China decided to deploy the People's Liberation Army Air Force, PLAF, to Tibet to help suppress the rebellion. By 1956, the PLA Air Force had deployed Soviet-made Il-12 and Il-14 aircraft to Gongkar Airport in Lhasa, along with other necessary equipment, as part of its growing military presence. China also constructed around 4 new airports and 3 landing strips across Tibet. Despite these efforts, the challenging terrain and extreme weather of the region posed serious issues, making the MiG-15 and MiG-17 jets that were deployed in Tibet largely ineffective. The high-altitude conditions and unpredictable weather, combined with a lack of adequate infrastructure, made it incredibly difficult for these aircraft to perform optimally. Additionally, even though China made significant strides in infrastructure development in Tibet by building roads, airports, and communication systems in the 1990s, the extreme conditions of Tibet's high-altitude airspace continued to hinder the efficient operation of China's Air Force. As a result, China's Air Force faced constant difficulties in fully utilizing its aircraft in this region, and their effectiveness was severely limited. By the mid-1980s, during Operation Falcon, the PLA Air Force became acutely aware of the logistical challenges they faced while operating in Tibet. The combination of low air density, oxygen shortages, and mechanical failures, particularly with aircraft engines, meant that China's jets were often grounded or faced significant issues in mid-flight, including crashes and malfunctioning. Despite these problems, China was compelled to continue stationing their air force in Tibet, particularly due to the presence of India to the south, which posed a significant threat. From the beginning of the 1990s, China increased its investment in infrastructure development in Tibet, laying down new roads and railways and expanding airports, with a focus on modernizing military capabilities. They began to deploy advanced fighter jets, including those equipped with powerful engines designed for high-altitude operations, and customized transport aircraft to address the region's unique challenges. Despite these technological advancements, China's Air Force continued to face immense challenges operating in such a harsh environment. China also began the development of domestically manufactured high-altitude fighters such as the Chengdu J-7, Shenyang J-8 and Chengdu J-10 in the early 1990s. Additionally, they imported Sukhoi Su-27 aircraft from Russia, which enhanced their capabilities for high-altitude operations. These aircraft were designed to operate at altitudes of 18,000 to 22,000 feet, but even these advanced aircraft struggled in Tibet's unpredictable and challenging climate. Despite these technological advancements, the extreme weather, thin air, and oxygen shortages continued to make it difficult for China's Air Force to fully utilize these aircraft in Tibet's high-altitude airspace. Mechanical failures, crashes, and mid-flight breakdowns became a regular occurrence, which significantly hindered the PLA Air Force's efforts to dominate Tibet's skies. However, the strategic importance of Tibet, especially considering India's presence to the south, pushed China to continue its efforts to build up its military presence in the region. As a result, China has continued to pour vast amounts of resources into developing high-altitude combat capabilities, including the J-11 and J-16 fighter jets. Over the past few decades, China has spent billions of dollars on research and development in an attempt to overcome the logistical and environmental challenges posed by Tibet. Even though these advancements have improved China's Air Force capabilities, the region's harsh environmental conditions continue to pose significant challenges. Despite the best efforts of the PLA Air Force, Tibet's altitude, extreme weather, and unpredictable conditions remain significant obstacles that prevent the effective deployment and operation of aircraft in the region. These persistent challenges continue to undermine the effectiveness of the Chinese Air Force's operations in Tibet, and the region's airspace remains difficult to secure despite continuous technological advancements and infrastructure development. Indian Air Force operations in the southern part of Tibet, India has prepared around 12 air bases from the northwest of Jammu and Kashmir to the northeast of Arunachal Pradesh, specifically targeting Tibet. Among these, the Ambala Air Base in Haryana and the Hashimara Air Base in Bengal serve as home bases for the advanced Rafale fighter jets carrying nuclear weapons. This fact is essential to remember. After the Sino-Indian War of 1962, India's political and military leadership decided to establish a vast network of new air stations and radar stations in the Himalayan region, especially in the northern and northeastern parts of the country. Over the years, India has positioned its frontline fighter jets at these stations, giving the Indian Air Force a strategic advantage for any aerial assault over Tibet. Furthermore, the favorable weather conditions along India's northern border, compared to Tibet, support this advantage. These conditions, coupled with a full arsenal of weapons, enable the Indian Air Force to strike from the plains to Lhasa, supporting their strategies and giving China's Air Force a significant setback. Additionally, if India were to deploy Sukhoi 30 Mki fighters, equipped with electronic warfare systems from air bases in southern India to Tibet, it would force the PLA Air Force to contend with serious challenges in gaining air dominance over Tibet. Therefore, India's precise plans based on the weaknesses of China's Air Force in Tibet provide an advantage to the Indian Air Force in this region. In conclusion, the significant shortcomings that China is facing in Tibet's air operations prevent it from claiming complete dominance in the air. Despite decades of attempts, the infrastructure development initiated by the People's Liberation Army Air Force, PLAF, and the deployment of more modern fighter jets have brought noticeable improvements to the Communist Air Force's capabilities and performance at these high altitudes. However, Chinese fighter pilots continue to face severe difficulties in high-altitude missions within Tibet's airspace. This is why Tibet remains a contentious and difficult region for China, consistently drawing international criticism. The challenges faced by the Chinese Air Force in dealing with these issues are increasing. Consequently, this situation severely limits the capabilities of the PLA Air Force in Tibet. Therefore, the depth of this reality will only become fully clear in the future during a potential conflict in the Himalayan region, where China will have no choice but to confront these challenges head-on.